Good evening, West Boylston. Welcome back to Community Matters. My name is Rich Zamorano, and today I'm interviewing the new manager of our municipal light company, John Finch. So, hello.
Hello.
We've been discussing our old wartime things. We'll get into all that stuff, but good to have you here on the show. Good to have you in West Boylston. How you liking it so far?
That's great. I appreciate being here, and it's a fun place to work.
Yeah, it's a nice, quiet town.
It's very quiet.
Yeah. Not as quiet as Princeton, though. A lot of your residents are underground. We were talking about it earlier. All the cemeteries that have, I say cropped up. All the old cemeteries that are like crops all over Princeton. It's a ghost town.
Between that and cows and farm animals.
Yeah. Well, West One's a little different than that, anyways. Yeah. So where are you originally from then?
I'm originally from Clinton, Mass.
Oh. That's local enough.
Local enough. That's where I grew up. I grew up in Clinton. I went to school at St. John's in Shrewsbury. Went to Northeastern University, got my degree in engineering, and then from there I've been working ever since.
Wow. You just ran right on through your whole life. Very nice to meet you. See you later. No. You grew up in Clinton, brothers and sisters and that kind of thing?
Yep. I have a younger brother and a younger sister.
Oh, yeah. So you're the oldest of three. Were you a good older brother? I've had this discussion. You're my third person now. I've only interviewed 4 people for the show. You're my third person that has been the oldest child in their family.
Well, they got to be the most independent, I think.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty much shoved off to the side once the second and third comes along. So we can fend for ourselves.
Yeah. And how much space between you and your siblings then?
2 years each, so 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Between
So
myself and my brother.
you were never like the big man on campus kind of thing.
No.
Yeah.
We were still young enough or close enough in age where we could fight and pick on each other.
So you spent a lot of time, obviously, growing up in Clinton. Graduated from Clinton, not from Clinton. What's their high school called? It's not called.
It's called Clinton High School.
Oh, it's Clinton High School. What's the one on Route 70 there, though? That's called something else, right?
I'm not sure. I went to St. John's.
Tohoto. Oh, but you went to St. John's. Never mind. I'm having a conversation with myself. I'm thinking in my own world. So you went the whole 4 years of your high school career at St. John's?
Yes.
What year did you end up graduating?
84.
Okay.
Yeah.
St. John's was a good experience, obviously, for you.
It was great. It was the right choice for me at the time. Yeah. And so it worked out well, and it definitely prepared me for college afterwards.
So St. John's then right into. Did you say you went to Northeastern then?
Northeastern University in Boston.
Yeah. What was your major?
Electrical engineering, and I did the co-op program at Northeastern, so it was a great experience for me there as well. So.
Yeah. And you lived on campus then there?
Correct. Yeah, on campus, off campus, but for the most part in either apartments or in dorms.
You're still close enough to home to visit as much as you could.
Yes.
Come home with your laundry and stuff like that.
Laundry and food were the primary focus points on the weekend.
Yeah, not many people that I've talked to been able to. I've got a good friend of mine actually that I was over his house on Saturday that his mom still. He's 44, my age region. His mom still cooks a lot of stuff for him and still does a lot of laundry and things like that. And I'm like, it's great. Look at it. You have your parents that care about you that much that want to do those types of things for you. It's good. And it doesn't matter what age you're at or whatever. But,
sure, exactly. And I have a daughter who's actually going to go to college next year, and so I figure I'll be experiencing the same thing. I'm going to get laundry.
A little payback. Yeah.
Yes.
Now is she going out of state or is she going to be staying local or?
Local. She's going to WPI.
Oh wow!
So
cool.
Very close.
Yep. So Northeast, and then 4 years of that electrical engineering degree. No other degrees or no other interests in there along with that schooling, or?
I did attend WPI as well. I have my MBA there as well.
Oh wow! Oh good, that's cool. So at some point in time, though, right around your schooling time, you decided the military was really cool.
Well, I think my freshman year in college, when I was figuring out how to pay for going to college, I figured, well, I'll join ROTC. And I chose Army ROTC at that time, and I got a 4-year scholarship. So
oh wow, oh, cool.
It was great. They paid for my school, and then they actually gave me a full-time job when I graduated as a active duty officer in the Army. So it was a great experience.
Wow. So now, how long were you in? You were in full-time for a while.
Full-time for about 4 years active duty.
Yeah. And where were you primary? You were primary stationed here, and well, obviously you were going to school, so you had to, at some point in time. When you graduated, obviously you were stationed somewhere.
My first duty station was Panama.
Oh,
so
wow.
I went to the country of Panama in '89.
And you obviously speak the language. You're ready for all that.
I know how to order food and order beer.
Those are pretty much the most important things, I would think, that you have to.
I did learn how to dance too. So.
Oh my goodness! Well,
those are the primary functions of it.
As soon as we're done here, we'll have a little segment. We'll get out there and we'll move the tables back, and I'm pretty certain I've got some.
Yeah, when living in another country, you figure out what gets you by, and learning how to eat and drink and how to dance.
and dance a little bit.
That keeps the peace.
Was it right around this time where you met your wife, or is that later?
That's why
on?
I don't want to go too far.
No. So Panama. Yeah. Were you stationed other places as well, or?
When I left Panama after about 2 years, I went to Colorado, and actually that's where my wife and I got married eventually. And
she was a local girl from Colorado, or?
No, she was in the Army as well.
Oh, she was.
Yeah, she still is, in fact.
Wow.
She's a lieutenant colonel, so she's.
Goodness gracious.
She's still in, and hopefully.
She wasn't your superior officer at the time.
Always.
Oh, she not within the same branch, but she's been been your superior.
She's been my superior. She likes to say when she joined the Army, it took her 2 extra days to travel from California to Georgia, where we first went into the Army, and so those 2 extra days gave her a day to rank over me for life.
Oh goodness! Oh yeah. And how many years now you've been married? We talked about earlier.
20 years.
20 years. Yeah. And when's your anniversary?
December 21st.
Yay! Look at you, got it right. Make sure she sees this taping. That's
well, it's only because I remember because of the reference to the Mayan calendar.
Oh.
In the end of the world, so I figured the end of the world. My anniversary is.
It's so will it be 20 years on this year? Wow, yes. That's pretty monumentous.
Yeah,
So hopefully there'll be a 21-year anniversary.
If not, it was fine. It's been great to now. So
yeah.
I'll chalk it up to a great time.
There you go. So you met your wife then in Colorado, got married. Somewhere after that, you must have decided children were a good idea.
Yes. Actually, after we left active duty, we came back to Massachusetts, and at that point in time, it was I think it was 2003. The economy wasn't as great as it was, and so we decided, all right, let's go to California. And right when we decided to go to California, we started our family, but of course that was the .com era. So in California, it was a great place to work because you had your choice of jobs. So we stayed there for I think it was about 8 years.
Oh wow!
And then as the kids got older, we had 2 kids at the time, almost in school age. We decided let's go back to Massachusetts. The environment is much better for bringing up kids. Yeah. The cost of living is a little bit less, and that's when I started my career at Princeton.
What part of California did you guys? Did you stay in one place in California? Or did you move around again?
One place. It was South San Francisco, Daly City.
Oh wow! So, such a beautiful area.
It was great. Great place to be a couple. Is in San Francisco.
Yeah. I tell my wife. My wife's actually from California, more Long Beach area and central to southern California. San Francisco's and the San Francisco surrounding Bay Area, most beautiful place. Yeah. Next to West Boylston. If I had any choice to live anywhere else in the world, I would live in that area. I just love the vibe and the hills and the clean air. You don't get the smog and the pollution and the crime that you get as you get further down in the state. It's just a beautiful. I can imagine why you went there. can't imagine why you left there, but I can imagine why you went there.
Well, with 2 kids, like I said, the housing there is brutal, and
Yeah.
nothing exists like West Boylston or even Princeton or Clinton out there, where you have houses spaced apart the way they are here.
Yeah.
Houses there and the housing conditions are a little bit different, which is fine. It's great, again, when you're single and you're a couple, great place to be, tons of things to do, but the environment that we get here in West Boylston or anywhere around here is not quite like that. So I said, let's raise our kids back here where we grew up.
Yeah. Yeah. So you ended up coming back to Massachusetts then, raising your children. Where did you? You were still in reserves at the time, and your wife, obviously, still in the military. Where did you? You must have gotten a job then back this way. Where'd you start working when you?
I started work right at Princeton Municipal Light Department. They were applying or advertising for a general manager. At the time, my wife and I had decided, let's go back. And so
is that the town you were living in, or?
Well, we didn't know where we were going to live at that point in time. We actually knew we were going to move back to Massachusetts. When I was able to get a job offer from Princeton, I said, well, let's just move to Princeton, because it seems like the right type of town for the right fit for us. And I lucked out. I think I was given a job offer on a Friday, and I think by Sunday I had put a down payment on a house in Princeton.
Oh, wow.
And so it was really fast, extremely fast.
Yeah. Whirlwind kind of thing, yeah.
And a few weeks later, we were moving back.
Now, how old are your kids? We were talking with Dennis earlier about this, having the experience of being able to, Dennis had lived at many different places or whatever, and a lot of times the transition for the kids are difficult to.
Well, that's why we chose that time in our life to move back. The kids were still young. My daughter, who's the oldest of the 2, she was just starting preschool.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't even know the age of that.
4 or 5.
4 or 5 maybe. Yeah. And my son was probably 3 at the time. So at that point in time, they had not set roots in school yet. So we figured that's the best time to move. Coming back here, they started school or preschool in the Princeton Elementary system, and it was great. There was no bad transition.
Yeah.
So they picked up. They were going to start school for the first time anyways in California, so starting here was nothing new. It was easy transition.
So the house that you bought in Princeton then, spooky place, right?
Right on a cemetery.
Yeah.
No.
Is it?
No.
I'm sure that in my own mind, I know that they've probably built something within the past 100 years in Princeton, but most of what you see throughout Princeton are cemeteries and older houses, and it's great. I'm a huge history buff, and I love the fact that, especially in New England, you're going to get things that go back hundreds and hundreds of years and whatever. But Princeton has always been it's a little bit higher elevation.
Yes.
So you'll get the fog that rolls in there, the
ice.
And anytime it rains or it snows or whatever, you're gonna get the icing and stuff like that. So I can imagine it was challenging to do what you do. In that kind of environment, locally.
It's like I told my wife, it's like the land that time forgot. You go up about 500 feet, and the environment and the weather is completely different from even Sterling or the surrounding towns. Yeah. But my house is actually, I bought a house that was 5 years older than when the date that I moved in. So, relatively new house on a relatively new paved road. So I was considered fortunate in Princeton, where I had a weather-tight house on a newer paved road. So.
And there were no hauntings.
Exactly. It was an old apple orchard, actually.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So the challenge then, and obviously the learning experience of being in the ranks of Princeton, had to have prepared you for everything that you did, have done, and now obviously here in West Boylston, you sound like you're a literally and figuratively a battle-driven individual.
Well, for related to my job here in West Boylston, it definitely did. But even prior to Princeton, I worked in the private sector doing the same exact thing, electrical systems, buying energy, buying power plant output. I just did it for the private sector.
Were you just like subcontracted through different companies, or working for a main company?
I was fortunate to work for large enough companies that had their own staff of electrical engineers and power engineers that would perform that function for them. And so I was working for a company that would use much more energy than even the town of West Boylston in its entirety. We used that much energy, and so they had specialists like myself working for them. So when I came to Princeton, that was more of a, I won't call it a break or a step down, but it was a different environment. It was a residential, very rural environment, heavily wooded, and all of the customers spread out over many miles.
Right. So there was a lot of line maintenance.
Exactly.
I have to imagine. Yeah.
A lot of line maintenance, a lot of upkeep, a lot of upgrades, and then when we had the storms, a lot of damage. And there's nothing you can really do no matter what.
Do you have any wiring underground? I can't imagine that you have anything that really...
95%, 98% overhead, some version of that. It's
look,
predominantly overhead.
If you had to go underground, you'd probably run into something that's planted there.
We would find your graveyards, and we'd find rocks and ledge. And, and that's probably the primary reasons why nobody has decided to go underground in Princeton, is because of the ledge work and rock work involved. Again, that 500-foot difference means not only the weather, but it does mean a lot of rock.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. A different operating system there, as opposed to what you're finding here in West Boylston. I was surprised to know that we're a little bit of a bigger municipality than what they do up there.
Right. In West Boylston, we have 3,500 customers opposed to Princeton's 1,500 customers. But it's interesting to note that the 3,000 residential customers we have, they use the same amount of energy as the 500 commercial industrial customers that make up West Boylston service territory. So those 500 industrial commercial customers that we have use almost as much energy as all the homes in town.
Wow.
And that mix is much different than what I experienced in Princeton. But that's a great mix for West Boylston, because that means we have a bunch of different types of users, so we can do different things with our energy supply, buy more in bulk, and it's used almost 24 hours a day versus the residential only customer, which tends to drop off at midnight and goes almost down to zero essentially, but not quite. But
I've always noticed, especially in towns like Holden, I disc jockey. I've been a DJ for a long time. It seems like right around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, they roll up the old thing. They roll up the sidewalks. The sidewalks get rolled up, and it's all packed away until the next day or whatever. Obviously a lot of the businesses, even there on that main strip, basically they close. You can't. There's not really much to do past 8 or 9 o'clock at night or whatever. And I can imagine. I've been through Princeton, but you think of Princeton, or at least I do, of Route 140. Obviously, there's a lot more to Princeton than just what's Route 140. But like you said, West Boylston has so many more business areas that I can only see it as a challenge.
It's fun. It is definitely a challenge, but it is fun. You have the industrial commercial base, which I'm used to from my previous employment, and they take a different level of service. They can't afford to be out of power for any amount of time because their business relies on it. And then you have the flip side of it, the residential base, which in West Boylston is like I said, 3,000 customers. You can have some outages in some places. You just can't have a lot of outages all the time, and then then you have problems with reliability of your system as well. So it's a great mix. I think it's a perfect mix for a small town like West Boylston.
Well, now, I was going to ask you, because I know now that we're the light company, or municipal light company, you're owned by the town of West Boylston, right? Our electric company. Now, what do other communities do? There must be. Is it just two different forms of ways that cities and towns have their power? You're either municipal or you're what? Investor
owned. So we like to say that there's about 4 investor owned utilities in the state, and there's 40 town owned. And when we say town owned, we're owned by the ratepayers. The residents of West Boylston owns the West Boylston Municipal Light Department. And so you have basically the publicly owned, and then you have your investor owned, which are the private larger firms like National Grid, Unitil, WMECO, and Boston Edison.
I can only imagine cities and towns that are the other way. They're basically at the mercy of those corporations that...
Not necessarily.
No.
They're pretty independent. They're islands on themselves, so they act like little electrical islands, is what we like to say. But the larger investor-owned utilities do a good job in their service territories, and we do a great job, we like to think, in our service territories. There's really not a lot of interaction between us that's that's hostile or someone trying to come into our service territory or vice versa. That just doesn't happen. We have enough to do in our own service territories where we actually work with each other pretty well.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So now where do you buy? You're talking about you actually go and buy power, and that's kind of a cool concept for all of us uneducated people that don't even know what that's all about. Where do you actually get the power? I know where the power lines are. I see them come by the reservoir, coming on in. So where is all that power sapped from or sucked from?
Let's start where we connect as a town. We connect through our substation on Temple Street. So behind the old landfill, the capped landfill by the reservoir, that's where we tie into the grid. And the grid for us is New England. All the New England states are one big electrical grid, all connected together. And so when I buy power, it has to be typically somewhere within that system, the New England power grid. And so more locally, we generate in West Boylston at our solar farm off of Shrewsbury Street.
Yeah.
So that's about 1-2% of our power, a good amount of energy for a solar farm. Then we buy the next biggest piece of power we get locally from the Oakdale Hydro on River Road, off the Oakdale Hydro facility.
Oh, wow.
Coming off the Quabbin, or the Quinnipoxic aqueduct. Yeah. And so that I think is about 13% of our power comes from the Oakdale Hydro facility in West Boylston. Yeah. So that's a good portion of our power that we manage. And we've managed that for about 20 years through a power contract with MWRA.
I've never even thought of that as an actual producing. I mean, I know where it is, so it just never dawned on me that much power is coming out of that little area.
We call it a 4 megawatt hydroelectric site, and it's a low impact site. So that means it doesn't do a lot of impact to the environment or the water or the fisheries. So it's a great little power producing plant, and we buy all the power out of it. 100% of that power goes to the West Boylston Light Department. Wow. And then from there, we actually broaden out from there because we don't have any power plants close by. But the closest one that we can point to next would be our power plant in Ludlow, Mass. And we have both an oil and natural gas power plant out there. And that's about 4% of our power. Right. And we own that with other municipal light plants who built it together out there. And then with about 12 other municipal light plants, we built the Brody Mountain or Hancock, Mass wind farm. And we own a portion of that wind farm out there, and all that power from there gets distributed amongst the 14 or so owners, including West Boylston. And then the remainder of our power, the bulk power, or the missing piece, is Seabrook and Millstone Nuclear Power Plant. We get about 38% of our power from those two nuclear power plants.
It sounds like, and I don't mean to cut you off, sounds like we are very well spread out.
Diversified,
yeah.
We have a very diverse power portfolio, and that's the goal. You want to diversify amongst all those power plants. So one, you're not counting on one source, and it's coming from different fuel sources as well. You would never have 100% power from hydroelectric because what happens in the middle of summer if it dries up? There's no more hydroelectric power. Same thing with solar. At night, it tends to go off, the solar power, and you can't rely on it. So you have to have backup. Same thing with wind. The wind will blow, and our wind farm in Brody Mountain will work, but the wind doesn't blow all the time, so you have to have your base power from some other source.
It sounds like there were a lot of really good decisions made, obviously by your people and whatever, predecessors. But that's just so reassuring. And I was actually talking to our chief earlier, just the fact that even going back a few years ago when we had the big ice storm of
2008.
That we were out of power maybe 8 hours here in town. My particular residence. There were people obviously all over the state that were out for weeks, almost probably close to a month. And we're just so fortunate to have. So far I have to point at that diversity as the reason why we've been able to stave off all these electrical disasters that other towns and cities obviously are.
That's a piece of it. The electric supply, they would have stayed on if the ice came or didn't come, and I guess is what I want to say. But our electrical distribution system, the wires and poles that carry that power from those power plants, that's really what got damaged. And depending on your elevation, depending on how rural you were, and where you were, and the temperature of that particular night when the ice storm struck, it was just havoc. It was destruction, and it was random destruction because you could go from Princeton, where I was at the time, to Sterling, and it was like night and day, depending on the amount of ice that accumulated on the wires. So we were in West Boylston. When I look back at the paperwork, we were very fortunate. The main feeders coming in through West Boylston, there's not a lot of tree cover, so we didn't have a lot of damage on those main roads. So like you said, within hours, most of the main roads were restored. Yeah. It was the outskirts and the, I like to call them the dead-end feeders, going out to the more residential rural areas of town. Those were out for days on end, or I don't think in West Boylston we had anybody out for more than 8 days, but in Princeton I know we had people out right up until the 24th. But that's because it's a dead-end road, 1 or 2 customers spread out over miles of wire or road. It just took a long time to repair.
Well, that's why you had a big surgence of people that got generators and things like that for those emergency things, and I know that's our new big news for this building anyways, that we're getting our own emergency backup generator, which is very exciting as far as that goes.
The thing that's happened today, or even recently over time, is that everything that you have in an office runs on power. Even the phones today run on power. You can't have a phone system and a response system that can operate without electricity. So even on an 8-hour outage, say, and that's minimal compared to the ice storm, you still need a generator to power up that phone. And we can't have our phones non-operational in even just 8 hours. So I asked the board to consider putting a generator in downstairs so that we're functional pretty much nonstop any time of the day during any outage. And that way we can man our own phone call system. We don't have to have our phones go over to dispatch at Chief Minnick's office, and that just minimizes the chaos.
Now, what's the capacity of that unit that you got coming in? Is that obviously will run most of what we run right now?
It'll handle the entire building with ease. It's sized appropriately for the entire building, so that this building will be functional as both an operations center for the light department as well as even an emergency center if it need be. Because we felt the lessons learned from the ice storm were that the community wants to see your light department functional. They don't want to come by and see the lights out. They don't want to see you jury rigging your system to be operational while their systems or their house is without power. They'd rather come to your facility and see that you're fully functional and powered on, ready to go. And that was the lesson learned from Princeton as well as from West Boylston when I talked to the commissioners, is that let's make this place functional so that when people come here, they feel like, all right, at least the light department has their act together, it's working, they'll get to us when they get to us. And so
I can't imagine how you can ever service the people that are down and like you said, those dead ends and all the rest of that stuff without having any power yourself. But we're gonna help you if we can help ourselves at some point in summer.
It would be tough to think that we're here trying to jury rig something to make it work, while at the same time we're trying to focus on prioritizing the restoration of power throughout town. Now we don't have to worry about that. We can just focus on restoring power. And really, if you want to know how it works, is you look at where are my main feeders, those come up first, and then all the side roads, the dead end roads, it's basically how many customers are on that road, is it easy to get to, and then we prioritize by that criteria. And if it's one house on one road that's a mile and it's heavily destroyed, that's last. If there's 100 homes on Hartwell on the development there and it's easy to get to, I'm going to go there first. And then really that's how we prioritize. And it's tough to tell people that during an ice storm, but that's really how it gets. How many people can we get on right now, and when's the next bunch of people? When can I get them on?
I mean, it's horrible that we're focusing on damage control. I'm sure there's much more positive stuff that goes on a daily basis, but there are in a position like you're in. You do need to obviously have these things in place, these contingency plans, and best case scenarios when the unfortunate things do happen. So it's good that there's something going on. There's some plan at least in the mix.
There's a plan, and hopefully we can implement the plan when something happens. But for the most part, you look at each storm individually and say, all right, where's the damage? Where's the most damage? How do I get it fixed, and do I have the right resources? And if I don't, where can I get some?
Well, what I've noticed in talking with other people and what we're starting to realize, usually the topic always comes up as budget because of the economy and what's going on. Is that something now you're finding a challenge in your new position with West Boylston, just having the resources monetarily to be able to do the things that you need to do, or?
It's actually it's not as a challenge as I thought. Like you mentioned, the two previous managers have done a great job here. They did well by the ratepayers. They accumulated enough money through the low rates, the low electric rates that they do charge our customers. They accumulated enough money to perform those capital upgrades. I'm fortunate where we can do these upgrades and we don't have to increase the electric rates. And so right now we're planning on doing, like you said, we did the generator downstairs. We plan on doing the substation project where we're going to replace that one single point of contact to the outside world with our electric grid. That we hope to borrow money for because it makes sense with the low interest rates.
No, what needs to happen there? Just fencing and cleanup, or
actual electric gear being replaced.
Oh, wow.
That is our single point of contact for the entire town. In fact, it's both the town of West Boylston and the town of Boylston's single point of contact. We actually share that substation, and then there's a giant transformer there and a giant set of switchgear there, and that's where we both connect to. And it's a great example of the previous managers, and this goes back even 3 managers ago before me, where they said, let's regionalize some of our equipment. And so Boylston and West Boylston shared that substation since 1973.
Wow.
And so now, almost 40 years later, we have to replace it because it's at its end of its useful life. But we can still upgrade it, and it's a $4 million project.
Yep.
But given that we share it, we only have to spend $2 million each.
Yeah.
Because we can each go through each other's equipment in the event of emergency. And so that's one of the biggest projects we have going on this year. And again, the light department managers from prior to me saved up enough money where I can put the down payment on that. And I'm going to ask the town to vote on a borrowing this May for the remainder of the money. But we're in great financial shape. So that's one great thing about the light department.
So is it just wear and tear on that equipment, or is it that we've got some newer equipment that works much more efficiently, safer?
Mainly wear and tear.
Yeah.
It's just the age. The age of the equipment is such.
So
40 years old.
So that kind of equipment hasn't really changed in the last 30 or 40 years or whatever.
No, transformer's pretty standard. The switchgear is safer to operate nowadays. It's definitely a better design than 40 years ago. But for the most part, it's a direct replacement for what we got. That's 40 years old, and we cannot afford to have something fail out there.
Oh, no.
Because the lead time for something like that is weeks, if not months on end. And so you have to plan this accordingly. You can't wait 6 months for a replacement transformer and have no power.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to do it now.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've been brought into a good situation as manager, and what I'd like to do is because you haven't had a lot of time with your feet on the ground here. What I'd like to do is try to bring you back maybe in another 6 months or maybe even a year or whatever, and we'll do an update, and we'll have some really good meaty stuff to talk about as far as what you've been experiencing and the pitfalls and situations that you may have been running into or whatever. But I'd like to be able to follow up if we can.
No, we'll have that biggest project behind us, and we definitely will have I'll have more experience. So I'd love to come back.
Yeah. I've been noticing one thing we didn't talk about, and I did want to touch on the changeover to lower wattage light bulbs. And I know those bulbs have been going out, but we can save that for next time. But it's just incredible how with technology and what we're doing now, where we can get our usage as consumers down to be able to obviously not only help us, we're paying less money, but help the whole system, that whole network, So
yeah, in a nutshell, the energy conservation is much cheaper than building new power plants. So anytime we can conserve a couple watts here or there with light bulbs or motors or whatever, it prevents the need for another power plant. So,
I mean, light bulbs, I have just a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. So they're not rounded. They're a little squiggly looking. Who cares what they look like? They're putting out just as much light. My mother actually has a bulb it's a huge bulb. It puts about 75 or 60 watt light out, but it's only using 19 watts.
Sure.
And I'm like, that is incredible.
Yeah, usually a third. It's about they put out about a third of the wattage that the original lamp took.
I think that should be the push of the show. Everybody change over your light bulbs.
It's an easy fix.
Don't hold out for what you're just used to. Try to find, and they make all different kinds.
Sure.
So it's not just those squiggly ones. They've got all different kinds out there, and what you can do on your own to save money and to save our environment and our tax on our power grid is great.
Sure.
So very nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you. Thank you for having me in.
Thanks.
All right.
Cool.
Take care.
I want to thank you all for coming out. My name is Rich Samorano. This was Community Matters, and we will see you next time.